Welcome, everybody, to episode 25 of Unhacked. You know, this podcast, Bryan, I think you put together our little tagline where we empower busy and overwhelmed business owners who are concerned about cybersecurity to outsmart Russian hackers. Are those your words? Or are they kind of a mixture?
That's probably ChatGPT, to be honest.
Oh, you AI'd that thing, didn't you? But
probably.
I do like it, because overwhelm is probably the theme of my life. And I do believe it's also probably the number one reason people get breached is we all just live in this world of overwhelm. So
100%.
Yeah, so we'll break down the best ways to outsmart these little bastards, and hopefully we can keep our money, we can keep our businesses intact, and we can live good lives. So I'm Justin Shelley, CEO of Phoenix IT Advisors. I work with businesses in the Dallas metro, also Northern Nevada, Utah, and Idaho, and just trying to take over the world like Pinky and the Brain.
Bryan, not Niagara though, right?
Not Niagara. We're going to stay out of Canada, and we're going to stay out of the Northeast so that you and Mario don't get.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't want to put you guys out of business,
We'll just join forces one day anyway. So
I mean, there are worse things out there. So yeah. So Bryan, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you do.
Yeah, Bryan Lachapelle with president and co-founder of B4 Networks, based out of the Niagara region in Ontario, Canada. I always like to describe myself, people I meet, as a technology whisperer. We help our clients remove the headaches that come with dealing with technology in a business landscape.
I like that, a technology whisperer. If you find that on my website, I made it up myself. I got it from ChatGPT. And then we are also joined today by our good friend Mario. Oh, wait a minute. Mario's sitting on a beach somewhere.
Somewhere, yeah.
I don't know what he's doing, but he's on vacation, that little bastard. And, we're here slaving away. In fact, was it yesterday or the day before? I was sitting on my porch swing. Day was over, and I was home, and I had a cigar, a little bourbon, and a magazine with Mario's face on the cover of it. That guy's just gone famous, Bryan. I don't know if you know this, but we're rubbing elbows with the rich and famous now. So
I'm okay with that.
It's a good
Never
time.
Be the smartest person in the room.
Correct. And I've never been accused of that. Anyways, shout out to our buddy Mario, who's having a great vacation, or we hope it's a great vacation, and he should be back with us next week. So let's get started. In today's episode, we're going to talk about working from home. This is kind of a touchy subject lately. I don't know if you read comments on Reddit or Facebook or whatever, but there's some angst, right? We're going to talk about
angry people, angry business owners, angry employees.
Yeah.
Everybody's angry about working from home or not working from home.
I mean, we found out we could do it, and then we're like, well, why don't we keep doing it? And we're going to talk about why we do, why we don't. So we'll talk about security, we'll talk about productivity, and then really for me, my passion is the culture behind it, because I think that's what's really most at risk here is you can lose that company culture that is really I don't know if it's hard to create, but you have to do it deliberately if it's going to happen. And so this just adds a new challenge to it. So on top of that, we are going to break down at a very, very, very high level the largest ransom ever paid. And then we'll wrap it up with our normal formula for how to protect your business from the infamous Boris Grushenko, the Russian hacker. Let's go ahead and jump in. So do you know much about this breach, Bryan? And I know I kind of just threw this at you last minute, but have you heard of it? Or you're familiar
this is the
with?
First time. This is the first time. That,
Okay. So before we go there, I want to talk about this cybersecurity firm that I recently read up on, and this was the language on one of their websites. They have a couple. Here we go.
Okay.
We are an international team of technical specialists conducting research in the field of information security. Our main goal is to make the world secure. Yes, security costs money, and so does our time. That's why we offer our services on a fee basis. That all sounds reasonable, right?
Yeah, pretty noble.
Yeah. Help the world. Types of services we offer: security breach investigation, protection against information leaks, and recommendations to protect networks and secure storage information. Great group. Sounds. I'm thinking like I wouldn't be surprised to find that on my own website. Pull up your website and see it. Now, Bryan, you might be shocked to learn that this is from the website of a cybercrime group called the Dark Angels, and they are responsible for the largest breach to date.
Yikes.
Help me draw the line between what I just read about these guys and this ransom note that says, "Hello, dear management of Johnson Controls International. If you're reading this message, it means that your network infrastructure has been compromised. Critical data was leaked. Files are encrypted. Backups are deleted by Dark Angel's team. The best and only thing you can do is to contact us to settle the matter before any losses occur." And then I'm sure there's an evil laugh at the end of that. So,
Brian, it sounds like their security breach investigation is doing the breaching, which
investigating
probably has to investigate how, and then they do it. And the protection against leak is pay us or we leak the information. Does that sound about right? And the recommendations, maybe at the end they say, "Here's how we got in, how you can stop that."
Lessons learned, like we always end the podcast, right? Lessons learned. Next time, dumbass, don't leave. I don't know. Don't work from home. Oh, maybe that would be some of the lessons they learned.
Maybe
some of the advice they give. One thing that I did find interesting about this group, though, is that they're low key. They don't want to be in the headlines. And so they're very selective about whether they encrypt or do not encrypt people's data. They might encrypt just enough to let you know that they are in there. Their big game is, yeah, they want you to keep running because they don't want you to be crippled to the point where you're making headlines like, it wasn't a ransom or even a security event directly, but the one we talked about last week that just took down half of the world. They don't want to be that, right? They don't want to be in the headlines. Their big game is exfiltrating data, just tons and tons of data. And I was reading
holding it, not ransom, but pay us or we release it type of thing.
Yeah, which kind of is a ransom, right? It is a type of extortion. Maybe we'll just call it extortion. So interesting, and this is one I like the subject just because it shows us, that this problem's getting worse from a financial standpoint. I don't like it because I don't have a lot of information. Lessons learned is like, guys, we just got to get our shit together. That's lessons learned because this problem's getting bad. Yeah. Inflation, we all are dealing with inflation, right? That's kind of another big headline. Brian, if you had to guess, do you know how much the average ransom payment increased just in the last year? We're sitting here in August of 2024. If we just averaged it out, go back a year, what's the increase?
Yeah, we're talking inflation. It's what, like 7-8%? So maybe that.
Would you be shocked to learn that it is? Let me reveal it here. Oh, whoops! I messed that up. I'm trying. There we go. The average last year was 400,000, and the average today is 2 million. So 5 times, 5x.
5 times. All right. Well, maybe my bread went up 5 times in the last 20 years, but definitely not in the last 1 year.
That's nuts. That
yikes.
That's crazy. So,
do you think that has a lot to do with insurance, though? Because most insurance policies have a $2 million payout, right? And maybe it has to do with that, because I do know from our previous podcast that the hackers will actually find your insurance documents and basically ransom you for the most that you have in your policy.
Yeah, and I'm frantically trying to find, because somebody actually broke down in one of these articles I was reading the percentage paid by insurance versus the actual organization. And it's actually the larger. Here we go. I think, is this it? No. Yes. Okay. And also this is I'm going to read this whole quote. So this is from Sophos. Do you use Sophos firewalls by chance?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So do I. So this is a Sophos report, State of Ransomware. And they found the average ransomware payment had increased 5-fold in the past year, from 400,000 in 2023 to 2 million. Sophos says that in more than 4/5, 82% of cases, funding for the ransom came from multiple sources. Overall, 40% of total ransom funding came from the organizations themselves and 23% from insurance providers. So they're only paying about half of what the organizations are paying.
Yikes.
And we're still have my on the spot math says we're still missing 40, 50, 63. So 37%. I don't know where that is getting, where they're pulling that out of. But anyways,
lease agreements.
Yeah, right. But the insurance
services.
insurance companies are paying less than the organizations themselves. So
that's incredible.
It is. I don't know if that's because I really wish I had more information here, but I do think this is why it's so important to know your insurance company, know what your policy is, make sure that your IT company and your insurance policy are synced up, so that you don't have a chance of them not paying out. So
yeah,
if I had to guess, this is an aggregate. You've got some that aren't being paid by insurance, some that are, and you've got some that whatever. So my thoughts on the matter. What say you, Bryan? Where
well, you
why?
mentioned that this one was the largest one payout, but I don't think you touched base on how much it was.
I
I'm
probably
curious
didn't.
now. I'm curious, like if these Dark Angels guys, gals, like what was the payout? Like
75 million. And I think
penny.
the previous largest, it's almost double from what the previous largest was, because I believe it was 38. It might have been 40, but it was in that range. So
75 million.
So we damn near doubled the previous record. I mean, it's
Yikes.
crazy. I mean, we're getting to the point where prevention is expensive. It always is. But man, with the cost of these breaches as it continues to climb 5 times, and listen, I don't think that your clients, certainly not my clients, are going to be paying a $75 million ransom out of pocket, right? So we can say that to our clients, and it's just glass over, whatever.
Right.
This doesn't apply to me. But what does apply to all of us is that percentage increase, that inflation, if you will, of a ransom.
What I would say to our clients and our listeners would be, listen, you're not too small to be breached and have your systems ransomed. You're just too small to make the news.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
And so you're not going to make big headlines across the world. Most of the breaches that happen don't. It's only these big ones that seem to make it. But if you were to talk to 10 business owners in a room, highly likely 9 out of the 10 of those people have been breached, and the last person have been breached and they just don't even know it. Right.
Yep. Yeah, the statistics the odds are not ever in our favor, shall we say? It's bleak. God, I'm choking up here. It's because I'm so sad. It's bleak out there. I mean, I joke about that, but it really is tragic to me. I say frequently that my passion is business. I love technology, but my true passion is business.
Yeah, agreed.
My parents owned a motel when I was in my early teenage years, and they lost everything. Now, it had nothing to do with cybercrime, but I watched firsthand that total devastation of a family's finances, and it's just heartbreaking. And so when I see stuff like this, that it's not even that you could argue was a mistake they made. This is just flat robbery. I mean, it's criminal. Right. It's just it's horrible. So,
and they'll blame you, not the perpetrator.
I know. Yeah.
Right? They'll be like, well, why weren't you better? Why didn't you put more systems in place? Why didn't you put more protections in place? How silly were you? And maybe they won't use the word silly, but
no, if you ask our mentor, they'll call you stupid or irresponsible, right?
Stupid or irresponsible.
Which is it? It's one of the two.
When they breach you, will they call you stupid or irresponsible?
Will they call you stupid or just irresponsible?
Yeah.
They aren't going to call you a victim. They aren't going to call you a hero. They are not going to call you anything good.
Nope.
And so we are left with this battle that none of us wanted. We're engaged in a faceless criminal, and these people, they're smart, they're well armed. There's tons of them, and some of them are state sponsored. So this is a tough battle. It's one that we have.
I like to say to everybody though, like, listen, it's just like bear in the woods, right? If you want to get away from the bear, you don't have to be faster than the bear. You just have to be faster than the guy next to you, right? Maybe even trip him on your way by. I'm just kidding.
Never say that in a public forum, Bryan. Jesus Christ.
So how do you protect yourself? Well, you just have to be slightly better than the guy next to you, because then the criminals will go after them, right?
I mean, it's true. It's true. Hey, listen, I've said this before too, but I used to work at a company, an armored car company, carrying money, and we carried a gun. And when we went to training, that's what they told us: is make it happen to somebody else. You're never going to stop it. It's going to happen. No. Don't let it happen to you. So And that is, we'll kind of conclude with this too, but in this case, I don't have a lot of lessons learned, but what can we tell people about how to make these breaches, these ransoms happen to somebody else?
Well, one, if it does happen to you, keep a fake, insurance policy in your files that say you only have like, $10 of coverage, or
And
that
it's
you were
expired.
denied.
It's expired, yeah.
No, but in all seriousness, it's just don't be the low-hanging fruit on that tree, right? Just
Right.
put in the basics. The things that we all should be putting in place. Lock your doors. Close your windows. Lock those too. And the criminals will come by. A lock only keeps honest people honest, right? So,
right. Yeah, I mean, you've got, we call it industry standards. You can call it best practices, but there is a set of things that we should all be doing, and that's kind of why we offer these assessments for free to anybody listening to the show here. We can go in and we can measure your security posture against what the best practices are, and tell you where your gaps are and show you how to close those gaps. So, and then wrap that up with an insurance policy and good policies and procedures, documentation. So, all right, let's jump off of that and talk about our weekly cybersecurity tip. We opened with this. We're talking about working from home. When COVID hit, there was this massive rush to work from home. Do you know?
I remember that.
Were you aware of either something you dealt with personally, or even just something you heard in the news that was a work from home caused data breach? Do you have any examples of that?
I don't know. I do remember selling a lot of laptops though.
Yeah. And a lot of VPN setups, and how come my VPN doesn't work, and how come I can't print from home with a VPN? And we'll come back to the technical side of it. But so back then I was doing similar podcasts, different title, different hosts, but we did an episode on this work from home concept, and near as we could tell, so I can't document it, I can't prove it, but what the information that we dug up alluded to the fact that because Garmin had a great big breach. I wear a Garmin watch for when I go running, and everything quit working. And this was a major outage on Garmin's part. And that's what we determined, or what we dug up, is that it was most likely caused from that rush to work from home without contemplating security first.
Yeah.
And somebody from home, their home computer was breached. They had a VPN right back into corporate network, and just opened up the whole world. So
I was very fortunate. I had a wonderful COO working with me, who the moment that we heard about all this stuff happening, immediately said, we have to set up our clients to be able to work from home. And this was about a month and a half before our government in Canada shut everything down, which was in March, I believe. And so in January, late January, Amanda was like, let's get all our clients set up in advance. And I remember emailing our clients, and my clients replying back being like, do you really think this is necessary? I'm like, you know what? No harm, no foul. We get it set up. If you don't need it, you don't need it. Whatever. On the day that we were shut down, I remember just having to send an email to everybody saying, yeah, here's the instructions on how you can connect. It's already all set up. Everybody in your organization is ready to go to work from home. And all our managed clients were like, holy crap, thank you so much.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And then we were able to help, I don't know, probably another 20, 30 organizations that weren't our clients get set up to work from home as well, because we were already done. We were already done with everybody.
Right.
So
that is fantastic. I mean, that's some serious foresight. I hope your clients appreciate and understand, who they have running the show here. So
I hope so.
Hat tip to you. Tip, seriously.
But the reason I brought it up was because a lot of organizations weren't in the same position, and they had to rush. They had to get things done fast. And in doing anything rushed, you always make mistakes. Right?
Correct.
You can get things done cheap, fast, or good. Or no, what is the triangle again? Cheap, fast,
or convenient.
Yeah. So anyway, you can pick two, not all three. So in this case, I guess a lot of people were doing it on the cheap and as quick as they could, and the quality wasn't there. So
maybe it was quality, cheap, fast, and good quality. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So lessons learned though. So you got everybody set up. What were some of, from a security standpoint, what were some of the lessons we learned back then, or that we're still learning today from working from home? And again, this is specifically cybersecurity.
I would say right now the biggest lesson is everybody has a home computer. Most people have a home computer, and you really ought not be using your home computer to do anything for business, because you've got a lot of personal things on there. Your kids are using it. They're downloading things they're not supposed to. They're trying to, download, the latest game illegally, and playing with software that might come from sources they ought not to. Anyway, point being is there are a lot of people using that computer, or if you each have one. Point being is you're probably not putting as much effort into those devices as we would as IT providers, protecting the devices that we issue to our clients. And so using your home computer, probably not a good idea to connect to business and or commercial resources.
Right.
I would say that's the biggest lesson from my end anyway.
Yeah. And, we could, I was going to say take it a step further, but maybe an alternative to that, because if they are going to use, here's the problem with what you just said that I've heard, pushback I've got, is that if they have a space set up and their home computer's on it, they don't really have a desk for another computer, and they prefer to use their own. They're comfortable with it, whatever. And so if that is the case, then we still need to secure it like we would any other, and they just have to agree with it. So it's a BYOD policy, or you've got to get the documentation in place first, because you are going to take control and responsibility of somebody else's computer.
Yeah, what we ended up doing is we extended our some of our security tools to people's home computers to an extent. We can't do too much, because then when problems occur, then they'll blame it on us. But
right.
And we weren't in a position to be able to support home computers, because those things, I don't know if but man, is there ever a lot of problems with home computers?
Yeah. There's a reason most of us don't handle that type of work,
No. Computer, you touch the computer and the fridge stops working, and all of a sudden, you're responsible for that.
Yep.
They're connected through the power, right? Justin?
Right. Yeah. Yes.
It's
There's
part
always
of the same
that.
grid. You must have done something wrong.
It's a stupid side note, but I hate it so bad when I'm on the other side of that, and I'm just absolutely positive that a technician of whatever sort did in fact cause the problem. But I know this side of it, and I know that side of it, and so a lot of times I'm hesitant to even say anything about it.
It's like when you bring your car in for an oil change, and you drive away, and all of a sudden your radiator's overheating, and you're like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah, it's never been a problem before.
No, it must be the guy at the station.
The game of fixing stuff. So, all right, so we had this massive rush to work from home. We learned some lessons immediately, and then kind of what we're learning right now is that we opened a can of worms, and we're let the cats out of the bag, or whatever phrase you want to say, and we're trying to figure out how to get reverse this, right? How do we get the cat back in the bag? Bryan, have you ever tried to put a cat in a bag?
I have not, but if I did, I'd make sure it was declawed first.
or put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Yeah.
It's not going back in,
No,
and again, I mentioned it before, but there's just constant outcry of employees who are being told to move back into the office. So let's talk a little bit about this debate. Now, I put out on Facebook yesterday, we have our little Unhacked Facebook group, and I made a quick little video, and I just said, hey, if you've ever worked from home, tell me pros and cons in general, and then specific to technology. And I'm going to go through some of these, and then I want to discuss them.
Sure.
And there's a few I'd like to call people out by name, just because I appreciate that they took the time to respond. So we'll give them a little shout out. So I've got a Melissa who said, generally, I loved being able to be with my dogs, take breaks, and clean and do laundry. The flip side, sometimes I made any excuse to get the house perfect before I could dive into my work. So that theme kind of comes up in a lot of these. It's your home, there's convenience to it, but there's also a lot of distractions. And then Melissa said, my internet and cybersecurity was fine. Some days I just wanted to see people, but most of the time not. So now we've got this kind of conundrum of, do I really want to be with humans or not? We do want that social thing. I think when we're working on company culture, we kind of need it. But also, it's kind of nice to just close your door, close your windows, and be alone and get stuff done. So I can relate to kind of all sides of that. Any thoughts on that one, Bryan?
Yeah, the social aspect was pretty difficult, like not being able to see people that you're used to seeing. I mean, yeah, there's so much to unpack there. I don't. Yeah.
All right, we've got Terry said distractions were hard when I was working from home. I'd want to get all my household chores. I mean, like I said, this thing comes up. Household chores done before starting on work. Cybersecurity was also an issue. You don't worry about it much when you work for a company, but when it's your own computer, so Terry was self-employed. When you work, when it's your own computer, you feel more susceptible. My laptop did get a virus when I worked for myself, and I didn't know what to do. So and honestly, that's something I hadn't considered, because most of the time we're talking to larger organizations, but this does kind of leave people out in the cold who are, what's sometimes referred to as solopreneurs, the 1 or 2 person shops that don't have good IT. So that was kind of an interesting comment. All right, next up, Hank said, the separation of workspace from living space was hard to keep. Working from home was hard on the body, much more sedentary. It highlighted the need for good self-care around body and socialization. A few minor password leaks. They just used 2-factor and fixed that problem. So, I mean, that's the sedentary thing. That's got to be huge, right?
Yeah. I remember I would take the kids, because I have 2 boys, and I don't remember their ages back then, but because I blocked COVID that year in a
well, I think we all lost that year in our brains.
Yeah. So anyway, I remember taking the kids for runs in the morning, and we would go for a run up the street and down the street. And I heard of people literally getting in their cars, driving, like around the block a couple of times, and then pulling into their driveway, and then like that way, that was my commute home, right, or commute to the office. So when they walked in, they were like in a separate area of the house, so that they had that separation. But
that's actually really interesting. I've read some, psychological benefits to having. When I read it, it was I think they called it a pause button. When before you walk in the house, you just sit there and reset your brain and kind of remind yourself that you're now home. You're off the clock. You leave your work shit at work, and you now come in and focus on your family or your personal life or whatever. So
I couldn't do it. Like personally, I couldn't do it. I came to the office, like I lasted maybe a week working from home, and then I was the only weirdo coming into the office, because we were considered essential, so we were allowed to go to the office, but most of our staff could work from home, and so we were like, yeah, work from home. It makes sense safety wise. So I would be there was 2 of us. One guy who couldn't work from home because I can't remember his reasoning why, and then me. And I came in, I would lock myself in my office, and I had that commute to the office still, and I still had my commute home, and like from my perspective, COVID wasn't great, but man, was the drive-in ever good, right? Nobody was on the road.
No traffic. I know, it was beautiful.
Yeah, but that transition between home and work, like you often don't think about it, but that drive-in is like a reset.
It is, yeah.
And obviously, you don't want to have like a 4-hour drive. I only had a 10, 15-minute drive, 10 on a good day when I'm speeding and breaking the law, and 15 when I'm not.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right, let's read another one from Diana. I work as an NP remotely during COVID. I guess it was worked during COVID, doing mental health.
Practitioner.
Yeah. As far as remote work, I loved being able to have no commute, take a walk or do chores on my lunch, and be more present with my kids. Technology worked well. No security breach, as I worked for a hospital that had solid system in place. That's good. What I didn't love was sometimes it was hard getting patients checked in and out, which was because coordinating with other staff who were also remote was a bit difficult on communication. we weren't able to just talk to each other in the hall, etc. So that, you know, coming back to the culture thing, that's really not culture, but kind of, you know, just the communication aspect,
cooler, right? People,
yeah,
talk,
right,
yeah. What we did there, because we recognized that pretty quick that people were disconnected. We set up two things, and one of them we're still doing to this day. Two things. We set up a morning huddle on Zoom, and we would all get together in the morning and spend 15 minutes, and we would just ask silly questions, just so people can get to know each other. We can have a little bit of socialization. It was the whole company. There was 20 something of us every time. And then as we found that people were not communicating very well and things were getting disconnected and disjointed, we actually set up an open Zoom room, and we thought, okay, people would jump in, once in a while. We always had a rule: one of the leadership team had to be in there. So if there was questions, and we just thought, people would come in once in a while. No. Everybody joined the Zoom room in the morning, and they left it on almost all day. And it was quiet 90% of the time. Nobody was talking. But if somebody had a question or somebody had a comment, they would just ask, and then like 4 or 5 people would jump in and answer. And if they were on a call with a client, they would just mute the Zoom room and do their call and then come back. And it was just fascinating to me that all these people would join. And there was a couple outliers who didn't want to socialize, but most people would just enjoy being in a room, knowing that they can communicate if they wanted to, just like if I could turn around to my colleague and have a conversation next to me. I thought it was fascinating, and it seemed to work really well.
Was that your idea?
No, gosh, no.
Oh, okay,
I'm not that smart. No, that was probably Amanda and or another one of my leadership team's ideas, or possibly one of our team themselves.
Yeah.
Ideas come from everywhere. I believe in leadership at all levels, so somebody somewhere came up with the idea.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. I love that one. I have to rat on myself a little bit here. You've told me this several times, and somehow in my mind, I'm like, yeah, but how would you know anybody was talking? Because I'm picturing like a conference room with a Zoom meeting up on the wall and everybody at the office, and you could run into the conference room if you wanted to talk to somebody, because I'm a dumbass and I didn't realize they just had this thing open on their workstations at home.
Yeah, they're just at home, and they're just like, they were just.
So if anybody talked, you're going to hear them. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm an idiot.
I was fascinated by it because a lot of our work, I would say 90% of our work is done individually, independently, where we're not actually talking to a client. We get the request, we remote it into their computer, or we investigate, and a lot of that investigation is done, outside of a conversation with a client. It's just happening in the background, right, where we're trying to fix things, and it's a lot of trial and error. So 90% of the time we're not on the phone with anybody, and so this Zoom room seemed to just hit the spot with people.
Oh yeah, I love that. So I actually do still have some employees that work from home, and I don't do that. I don't do a Zoom room, but we at least do a chat, so that using Teams in the morning. What are you up to? What's on your high level overview of your calendar, and do you need help with anything? Are you stuck anywhere? And then kind of a sign off before they go home, which is similar. What did I get done? Is there anything that I was trying to get done that I didn't get to? I think that's kind of the gist of it.
Yeah, like a brief and a debrief.
Now, one thing I did notice though is that interaction started dropping off, and if I didn't start the conversation, they would conveniently, sign off,
forget,
and be gone for the day, and forget to check in, both morning and evening. And so, being a technology guy, I went in and figured out how to automate hey guys, it's time for a check-in. Here's what you need to check in about. So now
you have 10 seconds to comply.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you should be at your desk. No, I'm just kidding.
So I don't know that they appreciate it as much as I do, because I have to kind of push the issue. But like I said, culture is important, and I do think that we need to maintain lines of communication. And maybe it feels a little big brothery of that, of me. I don't know. But it's as much for each employee as it is for me. I want everybody to know we're all here. We're in this together. We're working, even though we're not sitting here face to face all day long.
Exactly.
So, all right, let's roll back to some more Facebook comments. Jeff said that he missed interaction with people, some personal issues with computers, but he's learned a lot. Cyber is a constant issue no matter who you are. Spam emails and text messages are my biggest enemy. God, I can relate to that. The text messages have gotten crazy lately. And then Kara said, I work from home 4 days a week, 1 day in the office. I love it now, but it took a while. Started with a lockdown. And I love this line right here. She said, I had to realize this was my job, not my purpose or my life. I get outside when I need a break, and I work on my laptop on my patio when the weather is too nice to be inside. So I love that, her job is not her purpose or her life. And I think I like that because sometimes I get wrapped up in that myself, where I do kind of believe that my job is my identity.
I think
So
most entrepreneurs do.
yeah. So anyways,
Because you live and breathe it, right? You wake up in the morning, you're like, ooh, business, and then you go for dinner or driving around, like, ooh, they could be a client, or ooh, they could be a client, right? Like it's just constantly
right.
there. So I think from an entrepreneurial point of view, yeah, a lot of us are always on, always.
Yeah. So it was interesting. Again, I'm not surprised, but I am intrigued by how much of this did come down to the social, and maybe even, I think mental health gets overused, but the emotional toll that this can take, both good and bad.
Yeah.
From technology, Kara just said that updates were her problem. And Bryan, I'm sure we can tell our own stories. That's a problem on both sides of the equation.
Yeah.
Getting remote users' laptops to update is challenging.
We just I know that it happens for our clients in the background, and then they get a message, and they may not like the message, but it's basically you got X amount of time to reboot.
Right. Yep.
Right, 4 hours. You can snooze this, but eventually it's going to do it. So
It's gonna do it no matter what.
Out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not all updates nowadays, though. This is 4 years later, right? So not all updates today require update or reboot. So it's a lot better now than it was once upon a time.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. Another one, David, he said, same thing, separating home life and work life can be difficult, but he liked the short commute. So, there wasn't a lot of difference in these posts, just maybe different perspectives on kind of a recurring theme of technology wasn't the biggest problem from an end user's perspective,
right?
Which is good. From our perspective, it definitely could be a challenge, right? Making sure that things were secure. But tying into, because I wanted to start including a weekly business tip in these podcasts, even though we're talking mostly about cybersecurity. How frequently do we as business owners, and I think you and I could probably say we do, but how frequently do we contemplate the social, the emotional, and the cultural effects of the decisions that we make? How would you answer that, Bryan? I think you do a great job, because I know a little bit about your company and your culture, and I would say that you do actually a phenomenal job. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, we believe at B4 culture is everything. How we run the company is paramount. Like we involve all of our team members in all of our annual, quarterly, and weekly and monthly planning sessions, and we'll run by we have team leads, and we'll run by a lot of the decisions we're about to make through the team leads to get their gauge, because they're a little closer to people. But in general, from my perspective, it is easy to find a client, and I don't say that like it's easy to get clients, because getting clients is still difficult, but it is a lot harder to find the right person to work with you in your organization that has the same level of culture, the same level of knowledge that you need, and just the passion to be able to get things done, right? And so once we find those people, we want to do everything we can to keep them. And we can't always, as MSPs, do that with dollars and cents, because at the end of the day, private corporations, governments for sure. They're using my money and your money in order to pay, a higher salary than we could ever afford. So, we can't compete against, the cities and the municipalities. But where I can compete is creating an enjoyable workspace, creating a workplace that people love coming to, and I think we've succeeded, because I would say 99% of our staff, out of the 21, 22 people that work here, maybe there's one that would want to work from home. Everybody else wants to come into the office.
Yeah.
They all want to be here around each other, which is fascinating to me, because a lot of organizations, people don't want to see each other. They're like, yeah, these people are not my friends, but all of our team they seem to get along. In fact, they play games with it, computer games after hours with each other, and it's like, wow, that's awesome.
I mean, the truth is, we're social creatures. There are outliers in every generality, but we as humans need and crave that interaction with other people. And it's I love the feedback that we got on Facebook, because when I'm talking or listening to this debate that's been going on for quite a while now about how angry people are that they're being called back into the office, if we're being honest with ourselves, we do want and need that social interaction as well. So no easy answer, no good answer to this, I don't think. But I think these are some good tips on ways to keep the keep the culture intact.
Yeah, and we got to find balance. Like if somebody's not feeling well, they're just like, oh, I've got a little bit of a cold, or they can work from home. Like in fact, we always tell our staff, like, if you're not feeling well but you feel well enough to work, but you don't feel well, work from home. Like
Yeah.
I don't want you in the office, because then you're just going to infect the rest of the team, and then they're not going to feel well, right? And so, but if you're not feeling well and you can't function, then just stay home and take the time off. I'm not looking to chastise anybody for not feeling well, mental health or otherwise. It's all important. So
I want to bring up one more thing, and I will make this pretty quickly, because I think this is really where the debate is fueled, and it's in the subject of productivity. So from an employer standpoint, you and I know that time is money, and if people are screwing around and feeding the dog and doing laundry and whatever, when we're paying them to do billable work, I mean, we realistically can't give them the same salary, right? Or we're gonna the business can go under. There can be other challenges there. But how did you, either for yourself or recommend to your clients, that they maintain an adequate level of productivity? Whether it's the same or not, I don't care. But how do you keep it adequate? What was your recommendations there?
Well, here's the challenge. There's two types of businesses out there, and this is where I think a lot of the debate is being fueled. There's two types of businesses. There are, or I would say jobs, because one business could have multiple types of jobs in it that could work. Some people can work from home, and they could work after hours. They could work in the middle of the night. They can work, during the day. It doesn't matter when they work. They could get the job done. And then there's other industries like ours, where our help desk, they have to be on the phones from 8 till 6. And if they're not on the phones from 8 till 6, they can be on the phone all night long. It won't help me at all. Like, it won't help my clients, because my clients aren't there during the night. They're there during the day, and that's when they need help. And so you've got this dynamic where there's two groups of people, and it's almost as if they're fighting with each other, because they're not understanding that there's more than one type of work out there. Some things are time-based, that you have to do it during specific times of the day. And in some cases, you have to be in a specific location. Like, you can't be a janitor and work from home, right? Like, there's some jobs that have to be done on site. There's some jobs, like, I can't fix a client's computer unless I mean, sometimes I can fix it remotely, but sometimes I have to go on site, right? So there's different types of jobs. For the organizations, to answer your question directly, for the organizations that can work at any point in time, you judge how much productivity they're doing by the work that they provide, right? So did they write the report, and was it on time? When they did it, who cares, right?
Right.
Then there's organizations like ours, like I said, with the help desk. The only way to measure that is, were you on the phone, and were you available, and were you closing service requests Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and how many were you doing? And so for my organization, I was able to say, well, before the pandemic, you were closing 8, now you're closing 6. Before the pandemic, you were spending on average of 15, 20 minutes on a service request, and now you're spending an hour. Like, there's a disconnect between the two. And so we treated every person as an individual and said, you're personally not as productive working from home than you are here at the office. So we're going to ask you to come into the office now. But if somebody's, like, we had a couple people who were just like, they were monsters. They were just like closing service requests. They were helping clients. They were getting a lot more done at home. Hey, you want to work from home? Have at her. I didn't care, because the productivity levels there. Not every organization is that fortunate, and some places they have no way of judging whether somebody is functional, like being as productive from working from home or not. And so there are software we could put on place, not necessarily Big Brother type of software, but just, what application are they in, how much time are they spending in those applications, where are they spending their time, and those are types of things that you can't you can't put like an Autobot that moves your mouse, and, right?
I was just going to say, I'll fight you with my mouse jiggler.
Yeah, well, that won't work because it'll just show that your mouse is moving back and forth, but nothing else is happening, right? And so there's technology out there that allows people to judge productivity, but at the end of the day, is the job getting done to the satisfaction of what you're looking for, and have people report back on what they're doing and when they're doing, kind of like what you're saying. What did you do today, and what do you plan on doing tomorrow? Right, as a wrap up at the end of the day. And that to me is what the recommendations we're making to our clients, is that they have people report back what they did, and then you can gauge the level of productivity based on, did that work take that long in the past compared to today, and did they get the stuff done tomorrow that they said they'd get done today?
Yeah.
Right, or sorry, they said at the end of the day that they would get done tomorrow.
Right. I just random musing, right? When this first, I guess before the debate really ensued, the first thing I started hearing about were people that had two jobs.
Yep, I heard
two
that
full-time
too.
jobs, and they're working them simsimultaneously.
And those are outliers. Honestly, that was like
they are absolutely
outliers. And those people, you just, when you find out, you fire, move on, right? Like, it just is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So that, but I do think that you have some level of maybe dishonesty, maybe just taking advantage of a situation that can be frustrating for an employer. So I'll relate to that as an employer, and then at the same time, I'll just tell you, but personally, when I've got a day and it's slow, there's not a lot of requests, service requests on the ticket board, and I don't have other things that need to be done. I actually like it when my employees can take a break. I like it when we have a slow day and I'm not going to check in on them. I don't care if they're out shopping or walking the dog and my clients are happy and taken care of. Good for them. Good for all of us. Right. So I like that thing, that side of working from home for my techs to do that.
It's funny because I'm with you on that one, but at the same time, we have we call them quarterly rocks because we follow traction. We have these objectives that we have every quarter for all of our team members, and so when they're not working on something for a client, there's usually always something else for them to work on as a side project, right? And it's not mind-numbing or hard or anything like that. It's just when there's nothing, because it happens sometimes where there's a slow day and no calls are coming in. I mean, knock on wood, it should hopefully happen more often, but it doesn't. Anyway, they have a side project that they could work on when and it's to help improve the organization and help improve efficiency and help make it so that there's not as much stressful things going on, right? I'd much rather put out a fire by preventing it from starting in the first place than having to call the fire department to come put it out. And I use that analogy, when I say fire, I mean like technical issues, right?
Yeah. And I'll just defend myself by saying yes, and I agree 100%. And this is a high burnout industry.
Yeah.
So where we're talking about retaining talent and keeping employees happy and even a culture, I've always been an advocate of taking time off. So, I encourage my guys to take at least a day off every single month, in addition to an annual vacation. And then I'm not going to come out and just say, hey, if there's nothing to do, go home, or, actually I have done that before, but, generally speaking, this isn't something I would tell my technicians, but secretly behind the scenes, I'm like, good. I hope you get a break, and I hope you love the job, and I hope you go tell your friends, yeah, I can sneak off and go to the Walmart if I want to, as long as the things are getting done, both the clients and, as you mentioned, the internal projects and stuff. As long as all that stuff happening, I do still kind of champion the cause of letting people have maybe just their control over their own lives or their own space or whatever. So,
let them adult?
Let them adult. Yeah. If you can get shit done and I can make money, we're all happy and the client's happy.
Making money is not a swear word.
Correct. But I think this is a debate that's nowhere near the end. I think we opened a can of worms. It's going to be open for a while. So, that's all I've got on the work from home challenge, debacle, whatever we want to call it. So we're going to go ahead and move to wrap ups. Bryan, do you have any key takeaways, any final thoughts? And then I'll go ahead and close with our normal formula, and we'll check out for a week.
A couple key takeaways. Sounds like culture came up a couple of times during the call. So as much as possible, try to work into your culture and try to make it so that find ways to keep people happy within your organization, but don't let people work from home with unsecure systems. Right. That at the end of the day, we still got to make sure that we keep things protected. So at the very least, have the basic layer of protection, like industry standards. And if you're wondering what that is, reach out, call us. We can certainly walk you through that. And as my regular tip, that is, try as much as possible to be 1% better every day, regardless of what you're doing. You are responsible for cybersecurity in your company. Regardless of who you are, from top level CEOs all the way down to, the lowest paid worker within the environment or whoever that might be, you are responsible for cybersecurity, and take ownership over that and try to put as many things as you can in place 1% at a time. You're not going to get it all done right away, but if you improve every day and you make it a habit of trying to put something in place every day, whether that be for cybersecurity or something else in your company, get 1% better.
I love the 1% better thing. I'll just add, or maybe reaffirm, when we're working from home or working from the office, it doesn't matter. Cybersecurity just has to be a priority. It has to be from the top down all the way through the ranks. We all have to fight this battle because we are fighting monster criminals, monster crime rings. It's not this isn't like, playground bullying. This is real stuff. It's war. It's like fucking war. We are fighting Russian crime rings. Like
we have to be right 100% of the time. You only have to be right once.
Yeah. So get everybody involved from the top to the bottom. And I had this really profound thing I was going to say after that, which I completely forgot. So wrap it up with our formula: industry standards, best practices, whatever you want to call them. That's where we come in. This is the free audit that we're talking about. We'll come in, we will measure your network, your data, your technology, your best practices against what the industry says we should be doing. We're going to then, that'll always leave some amount of gap because 100% isn't a real thing in cybersecurity. It's just a changing game. It's a moving target. So we're going to take that. We're going to cover our asses with policies and procedures that we use, we train, we educate our employees on, and then we're going to get a good insurance policy and make sure that we're following all of their recommendations. That brings us, at least in my mind, to 100% protection. And that is my sign off for this week, guys. Thank you, Bryan, for being here. Thank you, Facebook audience, for participating. Bryan, just heads up, I've got Leanna on the team now working with me, and she did what I've been trying to do or talking about doing for quite a while, which is just go out and invite all of our friends to our Facebook group. So
nice.
Help us spread the word. Go to unhacked.live, go to our Facebook group, reach out, and we'll schedule one of these assessments for you. Whether you're a company big or small, we all need it, and we'll give you the formula. That is all I've got. Take care, guys, and we'll see you next week.